Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome back to The Truth, where today we are going to talk about my top 25 and college football going into this week. So, this is an overview. You guys can see the top 25 for the college coaches poll and the AP. I'm just letting y'all see that. And then I'm letting y'all know this is not the end all be all. The AP, I don't want to get this confused. The AP top 25 poll isn't the end all be all. The AP all that really matters is what the committee comes up with, what the committee thinks, and that's what's actually going to be for college football. But AP top 25 gives us a good idea of what they're thinking, and sometimes coaches poll too, but more of the time it's AP top 25. This is my reaction. So these are my teams who I have in order, which I will tell you. Um, I'll tell you a reason why I think which team should be ahead of which, and why okay, this team really isn't. There's no way this team's better than the other teams, but because of the record, they deserve it. But going to number one, we have Michigan, and Michigan. We'll get into the scandal second, but firstly, Michigan's been played really well. They've been playing really, really well. So give them the nod to that. A combination of that and that the fact they have one game over Georgia is why I have them at number one. Now, at number two, I have right behind is Georgia. Georgia is a team who, on paper, can get the job done. But will they? We don't know. Brock Bowers did have that injury. We'll see. That is also another reason why I moved them down to two. But yeah, no, we'll see. All right, at number three, I have the same as I did last week. Florida State. I'm bigger on Florida State than other people are. I think they're better than Ohio State. They're a team that has given me more confidence in Ohio State. But it's not bad. Number four, same thing. I have Ohio State. I haven't seen enough of them to really say they're better than Florida State, for me personally wise. At five, I have the same with Washington, and at six, Oklahoma. For me, why I don't have Oklahoma higher than Washington is because Oklahoma hasn't had the games of Washington where it's like, yeah, they won that game. Other than for the Oregon game, I know that one's arguable that Oregon beat themselves, but with that being said, um, Oklahoma just hasn't been giving me those games. They've been, I don't want to say playing down to their opponent, but it kind of feels like it. So, yeah. Other than that, that's kind of where I have it. I'm giving the nod to Air Force at number 7 because they are undefeated. And that's the only reason why. Air Force isn't a top 7 team in the nation, but they have a top 7 record. And that's why I'm putting them here. They deserve it, just like TCU did last year. No, I have them over another top 17, another top 7 or 7-0 team. But Air Force has proven to me more than James Madison, who I'll tell you is at 8 at 7-0. They've proven, Air Force so far has proven to me they deserve it. Now, we're going to get into the games after this, and we'll, you make your predictions or comments, do whatever you'd like. But I think Air Force is better than James Madison. Now, that being said, James Madison is 7-0. I believe they play in the Sun Belt. So not necessarily a hard team. This could also be another team that could slip into the playoffs like CCU did. Not necessarily because because technically, yes, they deserve it. They haven't played the opponents to deserve it, but they've had the record to deserve it, and that should give them the nod. And that's my personal belief. At number 9, I have Alabama as our first team with one loss. Alabama is 7-1, one of the few teams who are 7-1 right now. They are on a bye, I believe, this week. But I have Bama. Bama's good. Bama's one of those teams that are like, Bama's arguably the best one-loss team in all of college football. I mean, there's there's a discussion to be made. I believe you could argue with Texas and Oregon maybe, but give me the nod to Bama. They play in the SEC, so they play a really hard division. I know they did lose to Texas, but I'm giving Bama the nod right now because of two things. One, Bama has one game over Texas. Actually, yeah, I'll get into. I'll say Bama has the nod for two reasons, and I'll really get into Texas on why I have them specifically ranked where they are. But before I jump ahead, I have Bama at 7-1 for ahead of Texas because they have one win over them and they've played better games. Bama's progressively gotten better. Texas, like Oklahoma, has kind of played with their opponents. I don't like that. I want to see dominant wins. Alabama has progressively shown that they've been getting better. Now, going into our second team, who is ranked with one loss, who is ranked 10th, I have Missouri. The only reason I have Missouri up here is because they are 7-1 and they have one game above the other teams. The other teams with one loss have only played 7 games. So that means they can only be 6-1 or worse. That is why I have Missouri out there. Now, don't get me wrong. Missouri is definitely a top 25 team. Missouri's a good team this year. But I don't know if they're better than these teams. Going to number 11, I have Texas. Quentin Ewers is injured, and he's projected to be injured for a couple weeks, and that's why I have them at 11. That's what's like. Texas is one of the only teams who I think could realistically be put above Bama just because, one, they beat them, and they're a good team. However, with Quentin Ewers gone, and the fact that the Manning that they had didn't play is going to be really interesting. I really want to see what their plan is. Because I believe his name is Arch Manning. If Arch Manning's not ready, how well is that quarterback going to play? You know, how well is that? Because from my assumption, from what I heard, I thought what I was reading was that it went Quentin Ewers, Arch Manning, third string. They did not show that. I don't believe Arch Manning had a snap that game. So, with that being said, that's why Texas is at number 11. Right behind Texas is Oregon. Now, this could very well change. I have Oregon at 12. They lost to Washington, but they're a good team. Oregon does have the chance to be above Texas if Texas quarterback plays bad. If Texas quarterback plays bad, I will quickly put Oregon above them. But right now, give me Texas over Oregon. Right under Oregon, I have Penn State. Penn State's that team was like, I don't know if they're top 12 yet, but they feel like they're on the edge. They feel like they're on the edge, like knocking at the door. And that's kind of why I have them where they are. At 14, I have Ole Miss. And I feel like Ole Miss and Penn State are kind of interchangeable. Here's why I say I have Ole Miss at 14. Because their potential is really high. They have a really good offense. Now, with that being said, I played really close games. And that's the only reason I have Ole Miss right behind Penn State. And right after that is Utah. Utah just hasn't surprised me enough to say, yeah, they're better than the other teams ahead of them. But they haven't shown me that they're worse than the teams I have behind them. That's where I kind of have them at 15. They're in that middle pack. At 16, I have Oregon State. Man, they're a good team, but they're just not good enough. How would I describe this? Oregon State just hasn't shown me enough yet. Like that's with a lot of these teams who are 6-1, they just haven't shown me enough to where I say, yeah, they're definitely ahead of Bama, Oregon, Penn State, Texas, those teams. They haven't shown me enough yet. And I'm just waiting on that. I'm waiting for that game towards like, all right, because now it's late in the season. Show me that game, that late game season. I was like, all right, maybe we should start talking about this team. Apologies. Maybe we should start talking about this team. After that, North Carolina. With that loss, it really dropped North Carolina down for me. because I would have had North Carolina at 7 right now, but with that loss, I dropped them pretty far. Disappointing because if they don't play really good the rest of the season, that could throw them out for the race. They do have a chance. Right now, how it's looking kind of tough. So I don't know if each week there's going to be one less undefeated team. Now, with that being said, we'll see if there will be a spot for one of these teams. North Carolina is a team who could possibly sneak in, but we'll have to see. We'll just have to wait and watch. They're a team to monitor. Drake May's a player to monitor too. That quarterback situation, it's gonna be interesting to watch, to review, and let me talk about him for his third season before he goes into the draft. Louisville, I have right under North Carolina. I like what they're doing. I like how they're moving along. And then right behind that, Tulane. Tulane, I believe, had 2 losses last year, and they still have 1. So if they leave the season with 1 loss, that's an improvement. Like, we're talking about Tulane as like they're moving up in the world. Like that's pretty impressive. Right outside of Tulane is a close college by LSU. And I said this before and before. If LSU didn't have that loss against Ole Miss, they'd probably be 9 or 10 for me. Just because that offense is so freaking dominant. It's hard, man. When usually typically, like USC, for instance, who we'll get into later, when you have a team that's like, dang, we have to score every single time, that puts a lot of pressure on you. With this LSU offense, they feel comfortable doing that. That's like their comfortableness. It's crazy to think, but like instead of the best defense or the best offense is defense, or however that saying goes, it's the opposite with LSU. LSU scored so many points that they're basically playing keep away defense at this point. And then they've had more success with their defense. Now I want to see that against a top opponent like Bama. And because if they have a game like they've been having the last couple weeks against Bama, we might be talking about LSU as, okay, like LSU's on watch. They could sneak into the playoffs real quickly with that offense. But with that being said, it really revolves around their defense. They're the highest 6-2 team I have. The reason I don't have them the highest because they do have 2 losses. The highest 2-loss team I have, just because that offense is so freaking dominant. I think they can beat any other team who has 2 losses on this list. Right behind them, I have Notre Dame at 6-2. One of the only few teams who are 6-2 right now. The reason I'm having them at 2 is because they beat USC. And that's that. That's literally the reason I have them. Other than that, Notre Dame's not a bad team. I've been saying this year and year throughout this entire team. Throughout this entire year, Notre Dame isn't a bad team. It's just the fact that they don't have enough talent in. And hopefully being ranked top 25, they finish top 25 team, that'll help them bring in recruits. USC, they've lost 2 games in a row. We need to start talking about Lincoln Riley and that defense. What is wrong? What is wrong with Lincoln Riley's defense? I mean, it's getting bad. For 3 years straight, that defense has been bad. At Oklahoma, at USC last year, and now this year. Is it a coordinator problem? Is it a personnel problem? Like, you shouldn't have issues. And that's where it's kind of like, this falls on Lincoln Riley for not taking initiative for his defense, even though he's an offensive-minded guy. With having 2 losses in a row, that's why I put him at 22. I have Tennessee at 23 only because they're 5-2. They don't have that extra win. Tennessee's that team was like LSU. They're that team who's the only 5-2, one of the only few 5-2 teams that are just like, they're dogs. Like, they're a tough team, but they're just not. For me, they're not there yet. We'll see. I mean, if they win, that could move. That will definitely move them up. We'll see. But other than that, man, Tennessee, I feel like, has left a lot desired this year and has been a little disappointing. But other than that, Tennessee's still not a bad team. They really aren't. Um, Getting into our next team is Duke, who I have at 24 over UCLA at 25. I like Duke. Duke's been surprisingly really well. They've been a basketball team for so long, but have hung in there for so long. Have hung in there for so long in the season as a good football program. They deserve it with the record too. And that's why I kind of have them. Duke's been really highly ranked, really highly well played, and that's why I have them over UCLA. UCLA has been interesting to watch, but I don't think they've shown good enough to be above Duke, and that's why I have them at rank 25. Going into the games for this week, as it loads, one of our first 11 o'clock games we have is Florida State versus Wake Forest. I expect Florida State to do really well. If Florida State puts a great game, they have a chance. Like, Florida State's been right on Ohio State's butt for showing why they should be number 3. They have a really good game. They could move up to number 3 in the AP Top 25 polls. Oklahoma versus Kansas. This is a game I kind of highlight. This could be a really fun game to watch. It really could be. Two tough teams. I know the over/under is 10 points. You know, depending, there's a good chance that this could be a 7-point game, like that, like a 1-possession game. If it does become a 10-point game, it's probably going to be a late score. Now, going into our next game, Indiana versus Penn State. Penn State should have a dominating win. Really continue to prove why you should win. If they do lose, I believe they'll probably be out of the top 25. With that being said, I expect them to win. One of the first 2:30 games for Sutton. Sorry, guys. One of the first 2:30 games. By the way, this is Central Time. Georgia over Florida. This is a game I'd circle. This can be a fun game. Florida has been surprisingly well. They are 5-2 this year. That is very surprising. Circle this game. Georgia has not played well. Could it be a potential upset? Yes, it is in Jacksonville, Florida. But with that being said, this is probably going to be a really fun game to watch. Another fun game to watch. Quentin Ewers is injured. BYU versus Texas. That's also going to be another fun game to watch that I expect to be really interesting. Circle that game at 2:30 as well. If you can, try to watch both. Another good 2:30 game. A lot of good 2:30 games this year. This week. And it's going to keep continuing with one more. We have Oregon versus Utah. This is going to be really impactful because whoever loses this game, kiss playoff goodbye. I mean, like, this is for a playoff spot right here. Like I said, one team, like, there's a very good chance that one team is going to there's going to be a one-loss team who's going to be at 4th for the playoffs. It's happened year in and year out. So, with that being said, this could very well sell that playoff wish goodbye. So it's going to be interesting to watch. This should be a good game. 2:30 at Fox. Pittsburgh versus Notre Dame. Notre Dame should take care of business. If not, I mean, they're easily out of the top 25. But they should take care of business. They need to. Duke versus Louisville. This is going to be a fun game to watch. This is another 2:30 game that's going to be a fun game to watch. I like both teams. Louisville's quarterback has thrown a decent amount of interceptions for college, and that's why I kind of think that this will probably be a close game. Duke's been playing surprisingly well. I expect this game to be fun to watch. Keep in mind, 2:30, follow it. Tulane versus Rice. I'm going to be honest, I don't think Tulane will have the most difficulty with Rice. They shouldn't. But it could be an interesting game. Maybe watch it, maybe don't. That's up to y'all. UCLA versus California. I hope USC. Did I say UCLA? My bad. I'm sorry. USC versus California. I hope USC is not trending downwards. This is their comeback game. That's what I kind of expect. Washington versus Stanford. Let's be honest, guys. It's Stanford. Nothing being said. Air Force versus Colorado State. I don't know how to feel because yes, Colorado State isn't good, but I don't know where Air Force is, and that's what we're really gonna find out. Is Air Force that good to be undefeated? And this could easily knock them out of the top 25 polls if they lose to Colorado State. So it's gonna be interesting to watch. Like they could easily be knocked down to 7-1, and a lot of teams could jump them. A lot of teams will jump them. I mean, for my rankings, they'll probably jump down to like 19 or something. But if they win it, that's one more week closer, baby. Circle this game, 6 o'clock, ESPN, Tennessee versus Kentucky. Kentucky's not a bad team. Tennessee's not a bad team. That's going to be a fun game to watch. At 6:30, Ohio State versus Wisconsin. Man, to keep that number 3 spot and to potentially move up, Ohio State needs a good win. Because look, if Ohio State keeps winning, and for some reason not for some reason, I won't say that. I won't say it like that. But if the NCAA has found that they will, because there is talks that the NCAA might suspend Michigan for the rest of their season, this is your chance to sneak up. This is your chance to potentially fight for a number 1 spot and have that 4-string, 1-loss team play you in the playoffs. And that's big. So with that being said, Ohio State really needs to have a good game against Wisconsin. We'll see. I expect Wisconsin to want to run the ball. So it's going to be interesting to see. I don't know how to feel about this game. I don't know if it's just Georgia hasn't been playing well, but they're undefeated. Because that Vanderbilt game, I believe they played Vanderbilt. It wasn't what you desired. I don't know if you give credit to Vanderbilt for that, and that makes this Ole Miss game a potential upset. Or Georgia's just that bad. And we're about to find out. Like this game, we really will find out SEC-wise how good Georgia was. Or how good Georgia is, depending on how well Ole Miss plays. I want to see Ole Miss have a good game. Because if Ole Miss drops this game, they still have to play Georgia. And if they lose that game, they're out. I mean, like, this is Ole Miss's chance. They need Bama to lose, but this is Ole Miss's chance to potentially sneak in to the playoffs. There are a lot of teams who still are fighting for chances. Colorado versus UCLA. UCLA is playing heavy underdogs to make the playoffs right now with 2 losses. Heavy underdog. They need to stunt that Colorado offense and play pretty clean. They need with their defense. They need to stunt that Colorado offense and play pretty clean offensive football against their defense because their defense isn't really that good. If they can do that, look, dog, have good games, put really good games together, dominate your championship, and who's to say you couldn't be in the top 2? You couldn't be in the playoffs. We'll see. We'll see how the end of the year goes. North Carolina versus Georgia Tech. This is a game for North Carolina where they need to win. They do. Drake May has 5 INTs. You don't want to see him struggle against this game. You want to see him have a good game. 1, for their odds to make the playoffs, and 2, for his draft stock. Like he needs some good draft stock games because I don't know what's going on with Caleb Williams. It's been kind of weird this year. We'll see what he does. he's kind of giving those hints that he kind of wants to play for a good team, not really a team who's really bad. But we'll see. Um, it's been really interesting because I believe he's given a list for the teams he wants to play for, and I don't think any of those teams are picking very highly this year. I'll say that. With that being said, I could be wrong on that. I'll have to double check, so don't quote me. But Drake May needs some good games because if Drake May can seal that second spot, he could get some pretty good money, and that's really impactful. Like you want good money going in. Old Dominion versus James Madison. Look, man, that underdog spot for James Madison, like Air Force, you win against Old Dominion, dog. Who knows what happens? Like I'd love to see James Madison in the college football playoffs. Because one, that shows parity, and two, that would just be would be hilarious and brighten my day. Um, Oregon State versus Arizona. I think we kind of know, who Oregon State is, and I expect Oregon State to win this game. Like I'm not gonna lie to y'all. If they do get upset, it'll be very disappointing, but I expect Oregon State to win. With that being said, let me know my rankings wise, what do y'all disagree with about the games? What are your predictions? What do you feel about the playoff race right now on how it's going down, how crazy it's been? How do you feel about that? Nothing's set in stone yet. The season, there's still more games to play. So how do you feel? Who do you think is going to end up where? Um, do you agree with how I feel about the games? Do you agree with the games to watch? Are there other games that I don't know about that should be watching? Just let me know. Is there anything you like, you don't like that I do in my videos? Let me know. If there's anything you want me to cover, talk about NFL, college football wise, doesn't matter. I will talk about it. Let me know. Other than that being said, thank you all for watching. I will see you next time.